Alright guys, this is another review, real world daily driving review of another car that I own, a 2017 Infiniti Q50S Red Sport 400. This is a really interesting review that I'm going to do. I've actually wanted to do this review for over a year. I've owned this car for about a year, and it's really interesting how we came about buying this car. We were originally looking at SUVs and various other sedans, such as like the C300 Mercedes, the BMW 3 Series, the BMW 4 Series. We looked at the Lexus IS 350, and we really settled upon this car for a multitude of reasons. So this review is going to be a little long, but I want to give you guys a lot of information if you're cross-shopping this car, if you're coming from a performance mid-size sedan, or if that's really the segment that you're looking for right now, because a lot of the reviews on this car bash it all over the internet, all over the press and media. And like I said, they're not really understanding the purpose of this car, the segment that this car falls into, the value that this car gives you. And there's just so many important things that I want to touch upon with this review, that if anybody out there owns this car, maybe doesn't love the car right now, or if they're considering cross-shopping this car and they're really considering this car as a purchase, I think you guys really need to take the time and look at this review. You know, check it out more than once, play it 2 or 3 times. There's going to be a lot of information I'm going to give you. I'm going to show you the exterior of the car. I'm going to go over some of the important features that I think are important for anyone looking for a mid-size luxury segment between the price of $50,000 and $62,000. And I'm going to give you the reasons why I felt this car was the best as far as what it does, the value, and it just made a lot of sense for our needs in our household. So as you can see, we got the car in the tri-coat metallic pearl white. I think the car looks phenomenal in this color. It just really shows off a lot of the lines. It gives it a little bit more of a sportier nature. And if you're not familiar with the Red Sport 400, it does have, I'm going to show you, it does have a different front bumper, and it's a little bit sportier the way the corners are flared out. I mean, it's not aggressive, it's not an AMG, it's not an M car, it's not supposed to be. And that's really what I want to talk to you guys about, because you know, a lot of reviewers are trying to compare this to cars that are $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 more expensive. And you know, this car was never designed to compete with those cars. This is a car in an entirely different segment. It's not appealing to the M3 buyer. It's not appealing to the C63 buyer. It really isn't. This is appealing to someone that wants a stately luxury sedan at an affordable value that has a level of refinement, luxury, value, reliability, and of course, you know, practicality. And I think this car fits all of those needs excellent. I mean, I think it excels in everything. And the version that we got is the all-wheel drive version, and that's just because we live in the Northeast, and you know, I do have a GT350, and I've always had rear-wheel drive cars. So it was like, if we were looking for SUVs just to kind of make the wife happy, we just had to, you know, compromise on the all-wheel drive version. But to be honest with you, the car with the all-wheel drive doesn't drive like an all-wheel drive car. It doesn't drive anything like an Audi. It literally feels like a rear-wheel drive car every time you get in this car. 99% of the time, this car is rear-wheel drive. If you push it really hard, if you're on snow, ice, or you're just driving it like an idiot, then the front system kicks in. But it does it so intelligently that you don't even feel it. So, you know, whereas if you get into like any of the Audis, you know, they have very heavy, vague steering. And a lot of that is because it's, you know, all-wheel drive all the time, and it's just the way that they design those systems. This car, you don't get that feeling. It just feels, you know, very comfortable. You don't even know it's all-wheel drive. And it's just one of those things that I liked as soon as I test drove it. So it's really ironic. Like when we went into the dealership, we had no intent of looking at this car. You know, we came from the Mercedes dealership, the BMW dealership, and I had my heart set on like a C400, you know, AMG or a C43. And the numbers just didn't make sense. You know, like I said, we were looking to lease the car, and we just couldn't justify paying, you know, $850, $950 a month for that car. It just doesn't make sense. And after we looked at this car and what you get for the money, this car on a lease is half the price of the AMG C43 or the BMW with the M Sport package. Half the price. So that's something to really consider. It's an affordable car. It's well built. It looks good. It's got really good performance. It's not a sports car, and it's not a super sedan. It's not meant to be one. But you really have to take it for what it is. So I'm gonna take the camera off. I'm gonna walk around the car a little bit. I'm gonna go over some of the things I love about the car, and I'm gonna discuss a lot of technicalities about the car that a lot of reviewers don't talk about, and I think they're mandatory to talk about on this car. So once I do all of that, I'm gonna get in the car. I'm gonna figure out the best field of view for the camera, and then I'm gonna do some driving commentary with the car locally on the highway. I'm gonna explain to you why the engine in this car is outstanding. And if some of you guys don't know, I mean, the engine in this car is derived from the Nissan GTR. And that is one of the most incredible high-performance cars you could buy today. So the fact that this has, you know, a little baby tuned-down version of that motor, that's really impressive. So fit and finish of this car is outstanding. I mean, it's compared to, like, you know, my GT350, the paint quality, the build quality, the fit and finish is totally outstanding. It comes standard with the 19-inch wheels. On the all-wheel drive model, they're not giving you the staggered wheels, and it's not much of a stagger. I think it's only like an inch difference between the rear-wheel drive, or maybe even a half an inch. I'm not even sure. But the tire size that comes on the car is, I believe, a 245/35/19. And another little touch is the rear spoiler, and it's got the S badge. So, you know, when they did the Red Sport version, they didn't really do an overly aggressive version of this car as far as the exterior touches. There's no lower air dam, there's no lower diffuser. You know, it's got like a sporty type of exhaust tip. But like I said, I would have preferred a lower diffuser, but the 2018s do have that. And yes, we did put a bike hitch on the bottom because, like I said, we use. So another thing that I like to talk about the car is the brake system. And like I said, they're not Brembo brakes. I believe they're made by Akebono. But it's nice to get a car at this price point that is giving you that from an aesthetic and a performance standpoint, because, you know, if you're gonna get a set of nice wheels, if you're gonna change the wheels on these cars, and, you know, you're gonna go crazy painting the calipers, I mean, these calipers already look good, so you don't have to touch them. The brake system works well. It doesn't work well like my GT350. It doesn't work like an AMG or an M3, but I think with a couple of modifications, which I'm gonna discuss later on in this review, things that you could do to this car, because as a performance engineer and being around this aftermarket and motorsports my entire life, professional career, I know that there's certain things that you could do to this car that will make it into an animal, performance-wise, handling-wise, braking-wise. So it really depends on your budget, what you want to do, and what your needs are in the car. So something that we did as soon as we got the car, and I don't know if you guys realize this, and we didn't realize it until we took the car home the first day, is the car comes with run flat tires. And not only does it come with run flats, it comes with the worst run flat tires, the Dunlops. Not sure the model number, but as soon as we got them home and I looked at it a little carefully, I started researching the reviews, and if you look at the model number on that tire anywhere on Google, anywhere on the tire rack, it is the worst tire ever. There's nothing that the Dunlop tire does well. It doesn't ride well, it doesn't corner well, it doesn't steer well, it's noisy, it sucks in the snow and ice. It's just a horrible tire. Now, I don't think Infiniti purposely put that on the car. I think it was more of the corporate people at Nissan Motor Corporation that did it for a profit cost decision. It wasn't a decision like, hey, we're gonna put the worst tire on the car because we don't really care how it drives. I don't think it was that decision. I think it was definitely a monetary decision internally with Infiniti. So if you haven't had run flat tires on any car, and if you live in the Northeast, you know what it is to live with run flat tires. As soon as you hit a pothole, you have a sidewall bubble. And if you have a sidewall bubble, you usually have a bend in the back of the rim. So considering that this car is going to be driven around the New York State, you know, tri-state area, our roads are really bad, and the car comes with 245 rubber bands, and I said there's no way we're going to keep those tires on this car. So within 48 hours, I ripped them off, and I swapped them out to the Michelin Pilot Sport AS3. This is the best tire in the category as far as ultra high performance all season. And the reason I did that is I wanted to enhance the steering response of the car. I wanted to increase the braking, you know, the bite. I wanted to have a bigger sidewall on the car. So if you're looking at the car now and you see something a little bit different, I decided on a 255/40 ZR19. I went up with the sidewall because it's a bigger car. I mean, it's not an IS350. This car, if you park them side by side, it's a little bit larger. And I think the rubber band look in this car doesn't really fit, you know, and I think the 255/40 19 makes the car look better, makes the car ride better, makes the car perform better. Also gives you a lot of options for, you know, upgrading the tires and everything else. And for any of you guys out there that live in the Northeast, this really is a better decision. You know, like I said, a friend of mine just bought a 2018 of this car, and we're switching out the tires probably in about a week or two, because you can't drive around in Queens and Brooklyn and New York City with those rubber bands. You're just going to be on the side of the road stuck constantly, and you're going to be spending tons of money replacing those cheap, horrible Dunlop tires. So I really, really recommend to look into this tire, the Michelin Pilot Sport AS3, 3 Plus actually. You know, they cost about like $950, $1,000. I took the original tires, they had like 15 miles on them, and I sold them on eBay. Believe it or not, somebody that owned the same car in Queens had 3 bubbles on 3 of his tires and 2 bent rims, and he wanted to replace the tires with the same Dunlop tires because his car was leased. Hey, listen, more power to you, but if you're a glutton for punishment, go for it. But you don't have to bring a leased car back with the same tires that it was picked up on delivery. So just letting you guys know that. So he bought the tires. I sold them for like $450. He raved up and down what a good deal they were, because like I said, the Dunlop tires, they're like over $250. So I was just looking to get rid of them because I said there's no way I'm driving on these tires. Switching over to the Michelin completely changed the dynamic of the car. It changed the steering response. It changed the ride quality. It changed the overall handling. It changed so many things on this car that a lot of reviewers maybe have commented on the handling and the steering and the ride quality, but a lot of that comes from the tires, and nobody has driven this car and done a review has talked about the tires. And I just feel it's probably one of the most important things, is to talk about the tires and talk about the brakes. Now, as far as the brake system goes, it's a 4-pot caliper up front, and I believe it's a 2-pot in the rear. Like I said, they're nice looking calipers. The rotors look like they're about like a 14-inch, you know, nothing too huge. They're not like 15.5s or anything like that. And it stops the car well. But if you're into like hardcore performance and you want something with better initial cold bite and a little bit of a higher braking threshold, I would probably suggest you swap out the pads. The reason for that is I think the hardware is good as is. It's a good foundation. You guys could call Stillen and maybe get some slotted and cross-drill brake rotors just for aesthetics, or if you want a little bit more bite. But I would recommend anyone that has this car and they want to increase the braking performance and make it a little bit more attainable to drive aggressively, especially through winding backcountry roads, I recommend Carbotech brakes. You know, I use them on a lot of performance cars. Like I said, they do a lot of custom compound formulations. And compared to what's on the market, you know, the Hawk brakes, some of them work really well, like the DT60s and all, but they destroy your brake rotors. And the Carbotechs don't really do that. So for anyone that's interested in the performance, the brake pad compound that I recommend for this car is the Carbotech XP10 in the front. You can do XP10s in the rear, but if you don't want to have as much rear brake, depending on how you drive, you could do an AX6 in the rear. So a Carbotech AX6 in the rear and an XP10 in the front will take the braking level of this car up by about another 30 to 40%. And I kid you not, just by doing that brake pad swap. So if anybody gets in this car, you know, coming from an M car or from, you know, any other more aggressive driving car, that's all you need to do. The hardware is good. The calipers are good. The rotors are good. You know, you get a good set of tires like the Michelins. That also increases your braking performance and your, you know, your stopping distance. But get a better set of pads. They're relatively affordable, you know, a couple of $100, and you don't need to change your hardware. You don't need to change to bigger calipers or anything. Not on this car. This is not that type of car. So just wanted to make that point across, because like I said, there's going to be guys out there that want the M3. They can't afford the M3. This car falls into the price category. And, you know, with a couple little modifications, you could really make this car into an absolute monster, performance-wise. So looking at the side of the car, I mean, you know, it's a decent sized car. I mean, it's not small like an IS350. You know, it has a stately, luxurious look to it, and that's something that we liked about it. It doesn't look cheap. It looks more expensive than what it is, and it's just a nice car. It really is. It's a great value. No complaints with it so far. We've gotten 10,000 miles on it. We've driven this car all along the north and southeast. No issues, no reliability issues. A couple of little quirks. You know, I'm going to talk about it when I get in the car regarding like interior rattles and stuff like that. But that's just coming from me because I'm so particular when it comes to things like that. But other than that, I mean, it really is. You guys really should consider this car if you're in that price category for looking for a versatile sedan. If you live in the snow belt, you get the all-wheel drive and you get the Red Sport 400 option, and you're getting so much car for the money because the performance, the options, the luxury, the reliability, the build quality, the image. Like I said, the car does have a really nice, luxurious image. You're not going to be able to get that from a BMW or Mercedes unless you spend $850, $900 a month on a lease. And like I said, let's be honest, 99% of the people in this price segment, they're leasing the car. And you have to consider it. MSRP is one thing, but you know, nobody buys these cars. I mean, they probably produce 10 million of these things a year. It's not a car that's going to hold its value. That's just the reality of new cars today. Unless it's a specialty car, you know, you don't buy the car. It's just not a good financial decision. So for leasing the car, these cars are going to lease out better than the Mercedes and the BMW. That's just the reality. That's just residuals, money factor. They want to sell volume on these cars. They want to sell a lot of volume. So I give them credit because you're getting a lot for your money. It's a great value. There's no complaints with it. And the fact is, you know, when it comes down to numbers, this car per month is going to cost you less to own, to insure, maintain than any other the competition. I mean, like I said, Lexus, you know, very reliable car, but you know, we looked at the IS350, wasn't impressed with it at all. It's too small inside. It doesn't look like an adult's car. It looks too much like a kid's car. Now, I'm not saying that in a bad way. It just looks like a car that someone in their teens or 20s would buy. It doesn't look like someone in their 40s that's a professional that works in New York City would buy. That's just where it is. We didn't like the ride quality. We didn't think the car really gave us all what we were looking for. And after driving this car, I'll never forget the first day we went up to the dealer on a Sunday. The sales guy that we ended up getting was like this 80-year-old man. And, you know, I knew nothing of these cars. I don't research the import market. I'm not involved in this in any way with my business. And this car wasn't even on my radar. And like I said, we were looking at SUVs and other cars. And I remember the guy says, well, which one do you want to drive? And I said, I don't know. I said, how many do you have? And I thought maybe there was just an all-wheel drive and a rear-wheel drive. But he started going over, oh, you got the smaller motor, you got this motor, you got that motor. And he says, then we have this Red Sport 400. And I go, what the hell is that? And he's like, oh, it's got 400 horsepower twin turbo. He says, that's the one. Grab that car, pull it out front. That's the one I want to drive. And the one that he pulled out was a rear-wheel drive version. And I'll never forget it. Like, I punched the gas and the car like broke loose, went sideways. I went down the road, I hit like 90 miles an hour. And I said to my wife, I said, this is the one we're buying. And she's like, really? So I was like, yeah, this is the one we're buying. So we went on a good test drive. I took it on some nice, windy, twisty roads on a good highway up north. And I came back and I said, let's do the numbers on it. And, you know, the car had everything we were looking for. All-wheel drive, had the space, had the luxury, had the look, and it had the performance. I mean, the performance that I like. I mean, like I said, this is not a GT350. It's not an M3. It's not that car. But it has a level of performance that when you need it, it's there. Whether it's passing power or if you want to, you know, do 0 to 100 or whatever, this car's got it. And you know, it just made sense. The numbers made sense, the options, the availability of the car, everything just made sense. So let me just open up the door and I'm going to show you a little bit about the inside. So like I said, I mean, it's not the most luxurious interior, but it's a nice interior. You know, you have some, you know, deviated stitching here. They gave you this like aluminum trim, but like now the 2018s you could get carbon fiber. The seats are superb in this car, and that's something else I wanted to talk about. It's not an overly aggressive sports seat, but it's a really, really comfortable seat that definitely was designed with sporting driving in mind. I mean, it's got excellent bolsters. The foam density is outstanding. Anyone that complains about this seat is is nuts. I mean, I've sat in this car for 6 hours and it's superb. Another thing you'll notice too, it's got some thoracic adjustments here on the seat. It's got lumbar, it's a full power seat, but look at this. It has this. Now, if anybody that's coming from the BMW world knows, this is one of their signature traits of their performance cars. You know, this adjustable bolstering here. And it's really cool that Infiniti gave that to you in this car. It's just a nice feature if you're a taller driver. For me, it works. I like it. And, you know, even if you have it open just a little bit, you could keep your phone in here while you're driving, you know, whatever you want to do. So, you know, they give you nice brushed aluminum pedals. Like I said, it's another little sporty touch. You know, some guys complain about, you know, in some of these reviews in this car, oh, the instrument cluster and the double screen. And I'm going to be honest with you, the double screen is awesome. You're not buying this car to play with the screen while you're driving. I mean, think about it. You have to keep your eyes on the road. You have to drive the car. You can't be playing around with that. Yeah, your passengers can, but it's got an outstanding navigation system. The voice recognition works outstanding. The audio system is awesome from Bose. I mean, it really is. The only complaint is some of the doors, they rattle when you increase the bass above 50%. But like I said, I fixed that, and I'll discuss how I fixed that with a little Dynamat and other things. But other than that, yeah, I mean, you're not getting the stitching on the dash, you know, and on the glove box, but the 2018s are giving you that. The 2018s are giving you the Q50 sportier steering wheel, and they're giving you red stitching, and then they put some diamond quilted patterns down here. It has a similar iDrive type of knob, but then again, we don't really use it that much. And it gives you the drive mode selector here, so you could set your suspension, steering, and throttle response, and then you could select it in a personal mode. And the car also gives you an eco mode, you know, if you're trying to save gas and all of that good stuff. It's got good storage, you know, in the armrest, good storage in the glove box. The doors have pockets here. You can put an umbrella, and also, if you look down in there, you could put a bottle of water, like a Poland Spring water. You can't put anything larger than that, but ergonomically, that was a really clever touch to keep a beverage on the driver's side or the passenger side. Another awesome thing I'm going to go over right now, and this is one of my favorites, the shifter paddles. Now, the 2018s don't have these shifter paddles. They have cheaper ones, but these are made out of like magnesium or aluminum. I mean, just look at them. They're outstanding. I mean, they're a work of art. And they have split leather, so there's leather that's been skived down thinner, and it's attached, you know, with, as an inlay to the contact surfaces where you're going to touch, you know, like this. The paddles are phenomenal. I mean, this is so like GTR inspired right here. It really is. I mean, it's really, really nice. And the difference with the way they did this car, and very performance oriented, is that they didn't attach the paddles to the steering wheel, which is the way the newer ones are made. They attached the paddles to the steering column, and that's the way Ferrari's doing it. That's the way McLaren's doing it. You know, that's the way all of the high performance exotics are doing it. So I really thought that was an interesting touch that Infiniti brand took that approach in giving you that really nice shift paddle. I mean, granted, the transmission in this car, it's not a double clutch. It's nothing near it. It's probably one of the shortcomings of this drivetrain is the transmission. And the reason that it is because of torque management. They dial in a lot of torque management because they don't want you to blow anything up. But other than that, I mean, if this car had a dual clutch, oh my God, it would just be incredible. Because the engine has so much torque, so much linear power delivery that it's just unbelievable. So just want to show you a little bit more of the interior. It really, really is a nice place to spend time. You know, you get a single sunroof. You don't get a double sunroof in this car. And I don't know if that matters to you. It doesn't really matter to us because every car that I've owned with a double sunroof, all it does is creak and rattle. And that's a good sign of seeing how weak some of these unibody cars are today. But no, this car is good. I mean, it's about 4,000 pounds in its weight. And I'm going to be honest with you, when you drive it, it doesn't feel it. This car shrinks around you. You do not feel the weight in this car. And I don't know why. It's just a really crazy thing. You just don't feel the weight. So I just popped the hood. I'm going to show you guys the engine a little bit because this is the heart of the beast. And there we go. So like I said, it's the 3-liter V6 biturbo. And the way it's designed, it has the turbos that are like directly connected to the intake manifold. So you have instantaneous throttle response. You don't get the lag. And like I said, there's no fancy aluminum in the bulkheads or anything like that. And something that's really interesting, and I'm going to show you, there are no decals on this car anywhere, right? Nissan Motor Corp, right? It's not giving you anywhere of a manufacturing origin on this car. And I don't know if you guys ever even considered looking at that, but look at this. I'm looking at the hood. This is usually where you're going to see stickers. I'll go over to the door. Manufactured by Nissan Motor Corp Company Limited. It doesn't say if it's made in the United States. It doesn't say it's made in Japan. Now, if you open up the door of like a Lexus or a Subaru, and it'll tell you it's made in Japan. On the window sticker of this car, it does not say it's made in Japan. Another interesting thing that has me to believe that this car is made in America is the fact that it doesn't have any designation. Maybe there's a law that doesn't require you to designate that, but I'll be honest with you, I always thought that you had to, you know, somehow notate that, but this must be some sort of an interesting U.S. government trade deal with Nissan Motor Corp. But something that's interesting are the adaptive shocks in this car are made by Monroe. It's an American shock company. The lug nuts for the wheels, when I took them off and I was playing around with different wheels, and I'm like, you know, right away, it's a Japanese car. I got my 12 millimeter, my 14 millimeter lugs, and they didn't fit. And it's a half inch lug nut. So it's US standard. I'm like, what the hell is this? So, like I said, it's not really a bad thing. I mean, because if they're able to blow these cars out and give you all of this quality for the money, hey, so be it. I don't care where it's made. I think it's a great car because, like I said, the engine, transmission, all this stuff is coming from Japan. You can't really complain about that. The build quality on the car is outstanding. The only complaints that I had were the interior rattles on the door panels. But like I said, you know, you get into any of the Mercedes-Benzes, they're made in Alabama or wherever, down south in America, and those cars rattle like crazy. You get into a new S550, and you close the door, and the car rattles. So I think that's just where car manufacturers are going today. But look, I'll close the door here. It's solid. It's solid. You know, there's no issues. You see that? I mean, you know, it's very dead in that regard. Tight. Now, if you close a Mercedes, a C-Class or an E-Class, the bottom of the door, where it's got the molding going across, you close that door. I don't care if it's an S-Class, an E-Class, a C-Class, and a G-Class, I don't care. You close the door and you hear resonance and rattles on all of the Mercedes-Benz. That drives me insane because I was a big Mercedes fanboy, you know, back in the days with the, you know, that's when I started working on cars. You know, back in the 80s and early 90s, we worked on, you know, the SEC coupes and the W124 500Es and cars like that. And those cars were tanks. You know, they were bulletproof. So walking over here, I'm going to just show you the cargo space in the trunk. And it's good. You know, you get good cargo space in this car. It's not the best. What I would have preferred is a little bit more height from the floor of the trunk to here, just because I like to load a lot of crap in the car, and especially like I get a lot of big boxes at work, and it's one of those things where sometimes I get big deliveries and I can't get them in this trunk, so I have to throw them in the back seat. So that's something to consider. It's got, you know, a fold down seat area. I mean, it's adequate. It's definitely adequate. And something interesting that I love on this car, and this is the why we bought this one, is look at that, spare tire kit. How unfamiliar is that to see this today? This was the only car that the dealership had with a spare tire kit as part of an option. The only one. They had like 80 of these cars in stock, and it just made sense. So we took the run flats off the car. We already have a full, you know, a space saver spare, and it just made sense. So I hope some of this information I give you is really appreciated because, like I said, I'm a car guy. I'm not an automotive journalist. You know, I'm not just going to BS you on what to buy and what you think you know, you should buy. You have to think about your needs, think about your wants, and most importantly, think about your budget, because this car does everything we needed for our budget and our needs. Like I said, it's not supposed to be an M3, it's not supposed to be an ATS-V, but I'm going to tell you now, guys, you find somebody that tunes Nissan GTRs to tune the ECU and TCU on this car, you call Stillen. You get a set of their bigger sway bars for this car. You rip out the Monroe shocks and put a set of coilovers. Get the best coilovers you could find. take the wheels off, or you could keep the wheels. Put a set of Michelin Pilot Super Sports on this car. Dial in some negative camber, at least negative 1.6 in the front. Try to get the caster above positive 7 degrees. Dial out the toe in the rear, dial in the toe in the front. And I'm gonna tell you, this car will be an animal. This car will piss all over all these other cars, because I know what that motor can do. If that motor, you know, the foundation of that engine can make well over 1,000 horsepower easily, I guarantee you with a tune, an intake and exhaust, you could be well above 550 horsepower on this car. And with the all-wheel drive, launching this thing, I mean, it's unbelievable. As long as the tuner could dial out the torque management, because that's what really you have to get rid of, because the transmission doesn't like really aggressive manual shifting with the paddles. It's just one of those things that just blocks you out. So if I want to drive the car like a lunatic, it just blocks me out. But like I said, man, I mean, look at it. It's really a good car, great value, and it is what it is. You know, like I said, everybody's reviewing this car. They're hating on it. They're saying it sucks. They're saying, oh, it's not as good as the competition. It really is. I think it's better than the competition in a lot of ways, particularly the value, the engine, you know, the options that you get with the car. I mean, you buy a Mercedes or a BMW, they're charging thousands of dollars for all of these options. This car only comes one way, as is, fully loaded. No, all the options are given to you. So, I mean, that's just one of those things. It's great. It's got good paint quality, good panel gaps, good fit and finish. And in 10,000 miles, the only thing I've done on the car is change the oil. Changed the oil, rotated the tires, and I did the wheel alignment. So another thing I want to mention, this car was drifting all over the road when we took it home. And I knew something was wrong with it. So I brought it to the shop, and one of the rear wheels was towed in and the other one was towed out. So we threw it on the rack. I played around with the alignment settings a little bit. Now the car drives really, really straight. It's comfortable, no complaints with that. Now at high speeds, you're gonna look, like I said, the ride height, you know, you could put like, you know, 3 of my fingers in here, but the ride height is a little higher on the all-wheel drive cars, I think. And it doesn't have much of a air diffuser down there. I mean, it's got those 2 flaps in the corners and a little bit of a lip on the bottom, but there's not much on the front of this car aerodynamically to keep it stable at high speeds. So I noticed that anything above, you know, 100 miles an hour, the front of the car tends to feel a little bit light, and that's an easy fix. I mean, I think if you lower this car 1 inch and you dial in that alignment, your high speed stability is going to be increased by about 25% all day long, easily. So, you know, if you drive the car and you have a complaint like, oh, it doesn't do what I really want it to do, or I want it to do something better, you know, look into doing a couple of those changes that I suggest. I mean, this car as a foundation, I think you could go nuts with this car. You could go crazy with aero and wheels and tires and upgrade the motor, and I mean, you could go nuts on this car. And you know, for what it is, you know, somebody pulls up to you with one of these things modified, they're gonna blow your doors off. So it's a cool car, really is. So I'm gonna put the camera down, I'm gonna set it up on the interior of the car, and I'm gonna do some driving videos. I'm gonna explain a little bit about the ride quality, the steering, and some of the options with the car. This particular car that we got, we did not get it with the dynamic adjustable steering, because that's the one where it's got like a couple of servo motors between the steering column and the steering rack. And we just heard a lot of problems with those things and people not liking them. And like I said, it was one of those things where I was like, you know what, I want to just get a regular steering system, a regular electric steering system. Nothing crazy. I mean, we could adjust, you know, the feedback a little bit. And on this car, you don't really get between the normal sport and comfort mode. I mean, the steering feels a little over-assisted. That's just my opinion. And I would prefer a much firmer setting on the steering system. But, you know, for 2018, they said they made that a little bit better. One of my good friends just picked up a 2018, and he's going to give it to me soon, and I'm going to test it out. I just want to see how the steering feels comparing it to our car. And, you know, maybe I'll update this video when the time comes. But let me put the camera down, do some driving videos, and I'll be back soon. All right, guys, we're in the car now. I'm just going to show you a couple of the features as far as like the drive mode select. And you hit the toggle switch down on the console, and it gives you a snow mode, eco, standard, sport, sport plus, and personal. With the personal, you're able to adjust the steering, the throttle response, and also the shock absorbers. So I kind of dial it in personal, where I got the faster throttle response, I got the sportier steering, and I have the comfortable shocks, because that's like a daily driver setting. And in Sport Plus, it's a little bit more aggressive in the upshifts, you know, when it's in automatic mode and all of that. So just want to show you, I mean, it's pretty user-friendly. You just go through here, and then you could select, and then here is your navigation screen, and then you use the wheel on the console to zoom in and zoom out, and you could go through, you know, your audio lists and all of this good stuff. So like I said, people complain about the double screen and the user interface, but I think it's relatively easy. And it's the same situation when you get yourself a new cell phone or a computer or tablet. It takes you a while to get used to it. That's just the reality of electronics today. So you can't really expect a car that you buy to be as comfortable to use as a new laptop or a new iPad or a new phone that you bought. So like I said, it is what it is. It's a car. You just do all your settings. Voice command works great. Audio system is great. And we're good to go. So we're going to do some driving now. So stay tuned. All right, like I said, I'm just driving down the road from where I live, and you know, you guys could go back to my Shelby video and see. I mean, it's a bumpy road, and this car is, you know, it's really compliant. It's super comfortable. The seats are outstanding, but you do feel the bumps. You know, that's just the way it is. You're going to feel the bumps living down here, and with the Michelin Pilot Sport AS3 Pluses, it's a little bit of a harder riding tire, and I was willing to make that sacrifice because I wanted the increased grip and steering response and the better all-season traction. So, and you guys can get an idea. I mean, I'm hitting some really, really bad roads right now. And I guess if you look at the camera, you'll see how stable the video is going to come out and the audio and all of that. And we're in Sport Plus, so it just did a little bit of an abrupt downshift. So when you switch to driver select modes between standard, you start to notice it with the upshifts and the downshifts in automatic mode. All right, so we're gonna get off this bumpy road, and we're gonna get on some smooth road just to show you how smooth and linear this car is. Okay, here we go. And I'm not shifting with the paddles, I'm just leaving it in auto. The turbos just spool right up. I mean, look, with no effort, zero effort whatsoever, probably 25% part throttle. You gotta watch these bikers. And the suspension feels good. I mean, look, I mean, this is, I mean, I think if we switched over to a Pilot Super Sport, it would give it a little bit more grip, probably a lot more grip, and it would tighten up the steering a little bit. So let's get it on the highway, and I'll show you guys what this car does. And I like to rev it out. I mean, that's just, you know, what I like to do. You don't have to. And you're very rarely going to see one of these cars driving around aggressively on public roads. I just don't think the guys buying these cars are going to drive it like that. But you can hear the engine. I mean, it's got a subtle exhaust note. It's nothing crazy. So we're at 5,000 RPM right now. See that right there? That's the torque management. That's what I was telling you guys about. That's what stops you from driving this car like an M3 or an AMG. The torque management just kicks in, cuts power, and like I said, you just can't go too crazy with it. But it stopped me from downshifting. I hope you guys heard the beep. And this is a pretty sharp turn. This is a 180-degree turn. And with the all-wheel drive, we're doing a little screech right there. We're at a stoplight. Just want to forewarn you guys, the wife is in the back seat. So I'm not going to drive too crazy. I don't want to make her nervous. You know, I'll do other videos. I mean, we own the car, so we have to go do some shopping and do some running around today. So I don't want to drive her nuts and make her sick. So she's in the back. Say hello.
Hi.
Okay, just to let you guys know, she's in the back of the car. And just want to give you guys a little bit of a driving video. I mean, you know, I just pushed the car a little bit. I showed you where the torque limiters come in, and I showed you where the transmission blocks you from doing those abrupt and aggressive downshifts. Like I said, it doesn't have a dual clutch transmission. This is not a super sedan. It's not that car. I mean, aftermarket modifications, you could modify this car to do that. And look, it's so funny. Look at the billboard on the bus in front of us. It has the Q60S from the dealership that we bought it from. Pretty cool. But Other than that, I mean, like I said, I'm gonna put it in regular automatic mode because the transmission in this car tends to function better in automatic mode. I mean, you know, we all love the paddles, and it's kind of a disappointment that they put such race-inspired paddles in this car. And if you're a driving enthusiast like I am, you can't really take advantage of that with the upshifts and the downshifts, and, you know, really revving out to the red line and all of that good stuff. So that's the only disappointment that I have with this car. So that's what it is. All right, I got to get away from this bus. Yeah, I know. So hold on. Now we're in auto mode. I mean, I'm doing 60, and I'm flying through this S, and the grip is there. I mean, this sucker puts the power down. It's got the grip, and like I said, the Michelin tires, that has a lot to do with it. And it's just so smooth. You know, coming out of that turn, it's effortless. Absolutely effortless. So it's a really good car. It really is. I mean, it does everything you want it to do. It's affordable. It's comfortable. A little bit of road noise. A lot of that is going to be from the tires that we selected, the Michelins. No matter which one you put on there, unless it's like a touring tire, anything that's a performance-rated tire, they're just noisy. That's just the nature of a Michelin tire. Now see, it stopped it again. So the computers are smart in this car. They don't want you to blow anything up. So we're just gonna loop around. I mean, like I said, I can't do too long of a driving video today, but you guys can get an idea of what this car is good for and a little bit of the nuances that I don't like, especially, like I said, the transmission. And the brakes are adequate. Like I said, they're good. They're not Porsche GT350 good, but they're good. And like I advised in the commentary when I was going over the exterior of the car, you do a simple brake pad swap to a much more aggressive pad, it would totally change the level of braking that this car is going to put out by like a significant margin. I think the brakes that they put on this car are just, they're not aggressive enough for my taste. I like a car with a very strong initial bite, very hard bite at high speeds. And they put a pad compound on here. It's probably like a real carbon ceramic or something, because there's not a lot of brake dust that these wheels accumulate. Okay, here we go. And this is in automatic mode. I mean, this sucker moves. It really does, and it's just so smooth. I'm driving it fast right now just because a lot of these guys reviewing this car, they're not doing it. So I just want to show you guys, you can push this car. It's got grip, it's got plenty of power. Like I said, you're not going to be able to upshift and downshift with the paddles like you can on an M car. You know, it is what it is. It's not an M car, so just accept it for what it is. So I switch over to manual mode. You have to shift this car. If you're going to be in manual mode, you have to shift it about 6,800 RPM, because as soon as it hits 7 grand and that torque management map just pulls everything out and it's dead. It's you're done. You're not going to go anywhere with this car. So you guys can get a good idea at the velocity that this car can move, and it doesn't feel 4,000 pounds. It doesn't feel scary. It doesn't have the confidence of my GT350, because, you know, they're just totally two different cars. I mean, this wasn't developed as a race car. This was developed as a luxury car with a dose of performance thrown in, you know, and I think they did a really good job. I really do. I mean, what could you possibly get at this value that's going to give you this power? And the engine in this car is just absolutely incredible. Torque management. It drives me nuts. Still recording?
Yes.
Alright, cool. And we're on a really bumpy road. I'm in the hardest suspension setting, and like I said, the car is so comfortable. I mean, there's no more rattles anymore. I mean, the doors had a lot of rattles from the door panel clips. I fixed that. I'm gonna do a video going over my experience and how to fix rattles in cars. I mean, the video is gonna pretty much apply to any car. So if you buy a new car and you bring it to the dealer, they're not gonna fix your rattles. They're just gonna waste your time. So I pretty much mastered that for a long, long time on how to fix rattles. Second gear, third gear, rev it out, fourth gear. I mean, this fucking car, it's unbelievable. It's so impressive, it really is. So all these guys that are reviewing this car and they're hating on it, and you know, they're not car guys. They're not driving it like this. I drive it like this. My wife does not drive it like this. But I want the guys out there that are, you know, coming from G37s or M cars that are, you know, going into this car just because of the value or the price point. You know, this car is a good platform. I think with some aftermarket modifications, this car could be a freaking animal. Now, without the dynamic steering, I do feel the steering is a little over-assisted, but you could very easily correct that, like I was mentioning in the video, by lowering the suspension, increasing negative camber, and putting like a Pilot Super Sport on the car. So let me just go through this really sharp turn right here. And the cars in front of us are going way too slow, but and if you know, when I play this video back, I mean, you're gonna hear the audio. There's no tire screeching. You know, there are a lot of cops out, so I gotta be careful. Can't drive too crazy today. I mean, this car cruises at 80 miles an hour. Like, you know, some cars get into their sweet spot at like 60, 65. This thing is 80 all day long with no effort. I mean, I hope the position of the camera in the field of view is really going to give you guys an idea of how brisk this car is with acceleration, smoothness, and everything else. I mean, that was a really bad part of the road. Oh, welcome to New York. See, that was a crisp upshift right there. I mean, it moves. The car just moves. You know, I mean, the engine is so smooth. The turbos spool up so fast. There's just no lag. And now this is a really impressive car. I mean, it's got the luxury, it's got the comfort, it's got good infotainment system, nice options, and like I mentioned earlier, it's an outstanding value. See, like, we're at 60 now, and the car just doesn't feel like it wants to be at 60. It's just, that's not where this car wants to hang out. It wants to hang out at 80, and it wants to hang out between 4 and 5 grand. And then when that thing just kicks into the next gear and the turbos spool up, I mean, it just throws you. See, blocked me out, but see, it won't go into a second gear downshift until I hit like 3,800 RPM. It's a little annoying, but like I said, this isn't a high performance super sedan, and you have to be fortunate enough that you could even drive it like this, because you know, you get into like the Lexus and all that, and some other cars in the market, and I don't know about you, but there's really no performance in those cars that excites me. All right, let's get back on the road. gonna crack the windows down a little bit, see if you guys can get a little bit better audio. I just got the two front windows cracked. I mean, this is a sharp turn. Yeah, there's too much wind noise. I mean, this thing just takes it, man. It puts the power down. It's got the grip. There is no nervousness whatsoever in this car. And I'm pushing it. And like I said, when you start getting on the car hard, you know, that's where you start to feel the brakes just fading a little bit, and they're just not up to like a GT350 level or like a real high performance car. But, you know, like I said, you do a pad swap and you could drive it like this all the time and really beat this car up. And it's going to have the Japanese reliability. And you know these cars, I mean, you can work them, modify them, race them, and they don't blow up. I mean, it's not like, you know, a German car where, you know, just driving it on the road, it's going to be in the dealership with tons of electrical problems and everything else. I mean, this thing, you know, it's bulletproof. So I'm going to go back in automatic mode just because I'm tired of the upshifts and downshifts blocking me out. And we're going to go into personal. So this is the comfort settings that I have the car on. So now the steering gets a little bit more over assisted. I don't really like it, but if you're just cruising around town and in city driving, the shock absorbers got a little bit more compliant. So I think it took some of the rebound out of the shock, you know, through the computer system. And right there, there's speed bumps in New York. We actually have speed bumps in the middle of the highway. And apparently the state of New York think that's safe, that they don't do anything about it. Now look, I just punched it hard right there, and the transmission got really slow and sluggish, and now it becomes a luxury car. So did a smooth downshift, did it again, but this is a good car, really good car. All right, I'm going back into Sport Plus just because I want to have some fun, and I'm sure you guys want to see this car move. Hard on the brakes. Just got to keep an eye out for the state troopers around here. And I know the roads and I know where they hang out, so I just don't want to press my luck. And in the Sport Plus mode, the suspension feels really, really good. I mean, it's got good rebound. It's got really, really good control. And the body roll, I think in this car could be better. And with a bigger set of sway bars from Stillen or another aftermarket company, that would easily correct that. But like I said, I'm giving you my perspective as a high-performance automotive guy. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a guy that's going to write about cars that doesn't know about cars. I race them, I modify them, I build them for over 25 years. And the experience that I have is going to give a different perspective on car reviews because, you know, a lot of reviews on this car, they were bashing it and putting it down. And I'm like, you know, after I owned it, I said, you guys are nuts. You're not driving the car right. You got the wrong tires in the car. You're not driving the car right. You're not understanding what the car is. And, you know, some of these guys aren't even getting into the power band of this car that are reviewing them. And like I said, it just comes with, you know, driving style and your experience with cars. But I hope that people watch this video and go out and test drive this car and go out and buy them because it's an impressive car. Climbs. And I'm going to do a hard stop right here just to show you guys. See, I mean, ABS kicked in. It's great. It worked. And I faded the brakes. I mean, I was driving this car hard, and even with the brakes overheated, in a panic stop, it still stops good. So the brakes are completely adequate. Wife's bag went flying in the back, so sorry about that. But like I said, I hope you guys got some good feedback on this car, driving this car hard, what this car could do, the grip, the handling, the power delivery, you know, the nuances with the shifting, you know, with the paddle shifting. You can't really do what you want to do if you really want to get into this car hard. But it's kind of a shame because they got the right paddles on this car. It's a shame that the transmission can't be maximized to really take advantage of this, because the paddles are absolutely outstanding. I mean, you get cars that have, you know, like the ZF 8-speed automatics, like in the Jaguars or in other cars, and they have like these little rinky-dink paddles. You know, they don't really feel good in your hands, but the transmission logic is outstanding. So it's kind of like, Nissan, Infiniti, why the hell did you spend all of this and then not get the transmission to match it? I don't know, but they're not aiming this car at the M3 buyer. They're not aiming this car at the ATS-V buyer or the C63 buyer, because this car is $25,000 to $30,000 less than all of those cars. Now that's talking about MSRP. In regards to like a lease payment, you know, you could pick up these cars, you know, in the 400 to 450, 475 range, depending on the options and what time of year you get it and what the dealers are willing to give it to you for. Now, an ATS-V will lease between 750 and 900 a month. Usually, you know, 3-year lease, standard money down and all of that stuff. A C63 will be between 1,200 and 1,500 a month. A BMW M3 will lease, if you get a stripped down M3, maybe 750, 799 a month, but most of the M3s out there are going to be between 800 to 1,100 a month on a lease. So, I mean, think about it. Those cars aren't giving you double the performance of this car. They're just not. They're not doing it. So, for what you could get this car for and what it does, it's an absolutely outstanding value. You really got to put this car on your radar. Go out and test drive it. Like I said, this is probably going to be the only review out there that shows the car being pushed pretty hard, and coming from a guy like me that knows cars and is a performance engineer. So take it from me, this car is worth checking out. So hope you guys have a good day. See you soon, and any questions, comments, post them below. Take care.